Investigator Barry Fitzgerald is with us today. He's one of the key presenters at this year's Awakening UFO and Conscious Life Expo in Blackpool. This is Europe's premier consciousness event. You don't want to miss it. There is a detailed description of how to book your tickets at ticketquarter.co.uk in the box below. So please, please, please go and click and secure your spot at the Awakening UFO and Conscious Life Expo right now. I'm Kristen Gillespie. I'm your conscious investigative reporter, and I'm bringing you all of the presenters up close and personal, and this series of 15-minute pre-event interviews designed to give you a good taster of what you're going to learn at this year's expo. So Barry Fitzgerald, this is a really exclusive interview. It's part of our ongoing coverage of the Awakening UFO and Conscious Life Expo. We are working in affiliation with Zohar Entertainment and Gaia. Gaia is your conscious streaming platform, and listen, it's all things metaphysical. It literally gave me like a PhD in consciousness. And also I do their yoga videos daily. They have the most wonderful, comprehensive library of yoga videos. So click on the link below to subscribe to Gaia today. I'm really pleased to be here with Barry Fitzgerald. Barry, you have over 30 years experience with the supernatural, and you're challenging old belief systems about UFO sightings and the paranormal. And this presentation is entitled The Deception of Gods and Men. So why is it so imperative to make this link between the supernatural, the paranormal, and ufology now?
I think above all things, Kristen, is the need to really identify that there's a common thread that weaves its way through many of the fringe research fields. And a lot of what we've been dealing with within our little pigeonholed refinements essentially depicts itself by using a mask, or one that we will interpret it to be, when essentially the evidence seems to suggest that what we're dealing with is a common factor that originates from the same place. And this particular lecture strips away a lot of those old masks that we interacted with these things, whether it be within the ufology field, within various fields of metaphysics and also studying the old gods. We all tend to find these particular common similarities that when we take the mask in which they wish to be interpreted by, we pull that away, and we're able to track the phenomena by the way that it interacts with us. By doing that, we've been able to uncover this common factor, which has been really weeding its way into many of our daily lives, and has been for hundreds, if not thousands of years. This is nothing new. This is something that by stripping away the mask, we've been able to track this phenomena back into the bowels of Babylon, and right back into our first steps within the written language. Now, I know that it goes back much further. My instinct tells me this goes way back beyond Babylon, but we don't have the historical record to track it, unfortunately. And the other problem that we faced as well was that within a lot of tribal traditions, there were it was very verbally sorry, I forgot the name of it now. The tribal traditions were very oral, and so the problem being that when the history is kept within the oral tradition, if something happens to the tribe, that history is lost. So all the interactions that have accumulated over the course of time, at many instances, they're completely destroyed. And we see that as well within some of our ancient Irish traditions as well, in that around 2600 BC, we see a distinct and sharp destruction of the male lineage, which in itself has certainly helped to destroy that history of these particular things. of what we're interacting with. So to look at it essentially today, is it a must that we look at this today? It really is, because the interaction with these particular things, and I don't really give them a name, because when we start using names, they're preloaded. So we're already got ideas of what these things possibly would look like by using the name. So I don't use the name. I use they, them. So by doing that, and identifying the way that they were interacting and how we were interacting with them, we can see and identify those bony fingers within today's global system, and how far they're willing to go to make sure that they keep those secrets secret.
Absolutely fascinating. Barry Fitzgerald, you're just blowing the lid off so many interesting mysteries, shall we say. And it's the interaction that really catches my attention. It suggests that it's dependent on or determined by the consciousness of the experiencer. And in that way, I'm wondering if it's like they're almost looking for frequency ranges, or, there's something kind of else going on here.
There's a huge amount of deception with it. And even for us to sit on this side and try and understand it, we just can't grasp it completely. And the interaction, the places that they interacted with us, we can see right across the board. Now, I was working with Steve Mira for some time when we were developing the magnetic anomaly sequences, and we can identify these key areas around the planet where high strangeness phenomena is more likely to appear, and in which format it's likely to appear. And within that, we were able to expose certain areas and traits in which this particular phenomena will approach us on. And when we step back, for instance, even just back into ancient Greece, we find these key areas which are associated a huge amount with rocks of all different types, and rock strata, and cave systems and cliffs. We tend to find a lot of these particular areas where we went to have this commune with, and there were other key factors which I'll explain in the lecture that also help identify these key areas. But in principle, when we went there, when our kings and our priests went there, and they got instruction, the instruction was on how to rule us, on sociology and warfare, in various sciences. All of this information was being passed along through these particular avenues of communication. Now, moving forward into today, from ancient Greece, we also find that, for instance, in 1968, there was the oh my God, my brain is not working today. Douglas.
It's the rain.
Yeah, it must be. In 1968, the Douglas Aeronautics Company, where they were being sponsored to use Ouija board sessions to try and contact beings from the other side to make advancements within engine design. Now, the paperwork is there. This was happening within the industrial sector. This is still happening in the industrial sector. And there was communications going back and forward. Now, what were they communing with? When I got the report, I was able to see and highlight the key areas, which in itself is alarming, that these people hadn't identified that they were being played with. And within these key areas, they were being given information on sociology, on warfare, on all the things that were being explained and given to them in ancient Greece. But when they really started to hone down and start pressing for information that they were looking for, suddenly the messenger started backing off. We see this repeatedly, time after time after time. Even within the seance rooms of old Europe, we tend to find the same phenomena. When you start pressing it, that's whenever it starts pulling back. And this is where, I stand in my soapbox, and I urge people who are really going forward here and want to make their mark within the research fields. I have no issue with. But what I ask is to take caution at what we're communicating with, challenge what we are communicating with, because that is essential. Because the deception that comes through this is phenomenal on levels that we just simply can't even fathom. And some of those levels I try and explain, and I try and bring forward to the general public to identify them and how we can challenge these things. Now, if you've got something that's coming through the Great Divide, with loads of information for you, that's of a positive nature, surely it shouldn't have an issue with a question or two that just clarifies and gives context to what's going on. Instead, what we tend to find the majority of times is that these things, when confronted and challenged, disappear. They wish you to take, and this is something, again, I find myself on my soapbox. It's something that we tend to find time and time again. It's something about the human race that we tend to do. When these things come through the veil, they'll give us 3 lies and 1 truth. And for some bizarre reason, we will take the 3 lies and trash it. And we'll concentrate on the 1 truth and think, wow, this is brilliant. This is what's coming through. No, we should not be doing that. If it's lied to you once, it will lie again and again and again until it gets what it wants.
I'm interested in the psychology of that phenomenon, because it really is almost paradoxical in some ways. And you've drawn so many parallels, Barry, between ancient civilizations, indigenous tribes and cultures, ancestral worship, direct deities, and then ufology, and even the future, and our present moment, and where we are as a humanity today.
Yes.
So holding all of those parallels, it's a difficult job to do. I'm wondering what your personal experience has been in terms of your belief systems being challenged as you have been enlightened by your hands-on personal experience.
I have to say, going into this, over 30 years, I was expecting that things would roll on as normal, that during the seance rooms you had interaction with great Aunt Betty, or whoever the case may be. And you went out and you had your CE5 moments, and you had some flashbacks of UFOs, and everything was as it seemed. But as the course of the decades rolled on, I began seeing that things are not what we seem. So I was challenged with that in principle, that I had to change my own paradigm, and kept developing to where I am today, in which I certainly do not recommend that people don't do this, because if we don't do this, we'll never advance, we'll never develop. So we need to continue to develop, but we need to understand what we're actually communicating with by sourcing information from our ancestors and utilizing that within the present today. I think that is essential, that we should not be so quick and to criticize our ancestors. They have thousands of years on us. And what I tend to see is within the forums and things like that is one person will come along, possibly, who has had a life existence of 30 years, and they'll give their opinion on it because they never experienced it, totally ignoring the information, the thousands of years of information that has been left by our ancestors when dealing with this particular phenomena. Ireland here is littered with passage chambers that predate the Great Pyramids of Giza. Those people that built those chambers came from Babylon. We were accessing the information from there by them to here. And we also find key points of this particular information unfolding across Europe and also into the Nordic countries in the north.
This is a key presentation packed full of incredible ancient wisdom and even, shall we say, present moment insight. And I think it's really designed to give everybody an upgrade, if you will, in their own spiritual journey, because knowledge is power. And to remain teachable is to remain reachable, right? So you mentioned that, like, it's so important to keep challenging our belief systems.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, it's interesting as well that within this is based on a book that I wrote as well, The Deceptions of Gods and Men, which also challenges what we call into our lives, and the beings that are associated with that, what we're calling in, what is the history to some of these beings, and what we think is concrete soon disappears into the mists of time when we start challenging that particular perception that we have of what this being or entity was. And you know, within the lecture, I'll be speaking about one of the greatest, in my opinion, one of the greatest seance experiments that happened in England in the 1990s, and the fact that during the seance that they were making contact with alleged beings of the deceased, an alien appeared, what we would presume to be a gray appeared in the seance room, and also little small miniature UFOs appeared and swarmed the sitters within the seance room. Now that was just a small segment of phenomena that was appearing, but this was cross investigative fields. Now we're starting to pull in information from all over the place. Now we're starting to get a bigger picture of what we're involved with. And it was also interesting that other experiments were conducted in which these greys were brought forward, and immediately the communication was shut down by a spiritual team. The research was shut down, and the reasons given were that these particular beings absolutely hate the human race, and there were thousands waiting to come through. So the door had to be closed within this seance sitting. So again, now we're starting to challenge, well, what is it that we're actually communicating with? What is coming through and giving us this interpretation of what we think they are, and what they want to be known as? So, you know, it's a huge minefield, but it's something that I'm hoping to at least give some folks at Blackpool at least a flashlight of hope that they can weave their way through this.
Barry Fitzgerald, a presenter at this year's Awakening UFO and Conscious Life Expo, turning old conventional paradigms on their head. I love it. You don't want to miss this. Barry, where can people find your work?
They can find me on Amazon and Facebook, and they'll also find me at my website, charmstealer.com.
Brilliant, Barry Fitzgerald. Thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you in person, up close and personal at the event, the Awakening UFO and Conscious Life Expo. You guys don't want to miss it. Ticketquarter.co.uk secures your tickets today. I'm Kristen Gillespie, your conscious investigative reporter in humble service to humanity and all sentient beings, signing off for now. See you soon, Barry.